time for reminiscences about Grandma and Grandpa. Can these lights go on?
Oh, yeah. Dad, where's the switch for the lights?
Oh, it's over here.
John,
Is that on?
Jack says, give me
No,
this.
here, Ken.
Wait, do we want lights? Alright, right there you go.
And any of you that have no connection with that side of the family, you can go do something else. Okay.
Gotcha. What do you got to do?
If you want. All right. I'll
You're
start.
first.
I'm first because senior citizens go first. I was gonna share. Well, actually, I didn't know what I was gonna share. And then Linda found this necktie, tie clasp, whatever that Grandpa used to wear. So but one of the things that I guess I want to share, and a lot of you probably heard the story of Grandpa. Grandpa was a sheriff or a deputy sheriff over in Oregon. And he told me this story so many times, where he was chasing this guy, I don't know what, a horse thief or something, and chased him all the way to the Columbia River. And I think the guy caught the last ferry or something like that, or Grandpa's jurisdiction didn't work, so he had to go back, and that bothered him all his life, that he didn't catch this guy. Well, that was Grandpa.
Yeah.
And I also remember when he was really old, like in his middle 60s.
That old?
And I was climbing.
Younger than you, right, Keith?
You just now figured that out?
No, I'm 14.
And I told some people about this earlier, but I was asking his advice on how to re-roof our house in Sunnyside with a tall, steep roof about 50 feet in the air. And so he gave me a lot of advice, and I'm up on the roof, and pretty soon he's climbing up onto the roof, giving me instructions. I wouldn't climb up on that roof today. But again, that was my grandfather. And another time, and I'm trying to remember whether, is Diane? Where's Diane? Anyway, we didn't do it very often, but every once in a while, Diane and I would cut asparagus for our grandparents. And he would take the boxes into where he sold it, and they would grade it. Well, I don't know if it was Diane's idea or my idea. We figured this out, that if we graded it in advance and put the top of the boxes with the best asparagus, he would get #1 grade for the boxes. He went along with it and didn't say anything about it. And I think eventually, one of the guys at the place he was taking it to came up to him and said, "Fred, we know what you're doing."
It was the boxes. We put the boxes underneath the spare.
I didn't want to mention that, but we also we all
That was you.
we graded the asparagus. And I also, now we've had this nice meal, and this is actually reasonably healthy. And I still remember my grandparents getting up early in the morning, throwing the bacon on the cast iron frying pan on the wood stove.
And that's the point, the wood stove. Grandma was getting up, stoking that stove.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so the bacon got fried, and then the eggs went in why waste the bacon grease? Or the sausage or whatever. You could dip your bread in it that she had made with pure cream from their cows.
Now wait a minute. You poured the cream and the milk through the cotton so that you didn't get the hairs from the cow.
Well, there's that
In
too.
it,
Yeah.
because it was warm from the cow.
Yeah, and we're still here for some reason. And so that's why they died at a young age. I mean, because of all. Anyway, we've got a lot of things else, but let's get somebody else up here. Madeline, why don't you come on? You're one of the instigators. And again, she sent me some great pictures, so the slideshow you showed that you saw. I love the one at the Homestead House that you got a picture of. Just
brother David, because my brother David kind of did all this investigating of the family plot and interviewing people who lived in the Florida area, and we actually talked to people who corroborated the fact that that was their home. And the story was that I remember from my father, and again, if anybody has any other information to add to this or to change the information I have, that would be great. But what I had always heard was that home was built, he was born in a log cabin somewhere down on the property while that home was being built. So all of you mothers, I mean, they would have been older at that time, and so that's all I really know about that house. Again, I wish my brother David was here. I know that he knows a lot more information than I do about that. But anyway, I went back in, I think that was taken probably in '97, and I took a picture. And when I went back, I took Joe back there in 2007, so it would have been about 10 years later. It was just a pile of wood, so I was really glad that I did get that. But we walked through it. There was still some old kind of funky stuff in it. I was kind of surprised that it hadn't been taken apart and burned for firewood. But I'm sure that that isn't the same house, because the postcard was from 1909, and somebody said Grandma and Grandpa were married in 1910. So then that was in the house. But I kind of like to think of Grandma sitting there holding onto that post in the old house, and that that's basically what their farm was like. It was just high land, non-irrigated wheat fields, and that must have been a really, really hard life to live. She was a one-room schoolhouse teacher, and if you go through those books, I think Cindy said she looked at me. It looks like she taught at a lot of different schools, and according to my brother, some of the stories were that she would ride on a horse, like side saddle, sometimes up to 8 miles to get to her school. And she would, she wasn't just the teacher. She would go into the school, have to make the fire, get it all warmed up. She taught, I don't know how many different grades, but, and then, I don't know if she went back in the same day, but one time during the trip when I was back there with my brother, we actually saw some of the buildings that are still there that are one-room schoolhouses that where Grandma taught, at least that or haven't been there for some time. Anyway, I would say the memory that I have, we were the younger cousins, so I don't think I have as vivid memories of the kind of Keith and some of you others might have, but I just remember going to Grandma and Grandpa's and always climbing up in Grandpa's lap, and I mean, he was pretty old by then, in that big old oak chair that he had, but one of the things I always ask him about, because kids aren't shy about this, is where did he get that thing on his forehead? And I don't even know, I mean, I'm sure I never got the story straight, but the story that he always told us, the Matthew kids, was that during the period when he was doing his odd job and being a deputy sheriff or whatever, that an Indian pulled out a bow and arrow and shot him in the forehead. So, anyway, it was a good story to tell at school that my grandpa was shot on the forehead and has the scars to prove it. I was a kid, so I have no idea. So, and then, anyway, I guess that's the main memory, and I can remember I was telling Denise that one real sweet memory that I have of Grandma and Grandpa in their later years was we had just moved Grandpa into his house in Sunnyside from the farm. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
He lived in a house for a while, and Grandma, I think, was recuperating in a convalescent home. I don't know if it was determined whether she would actually come back or they would be able to live together or not, but I think the hope was that she would be able to come back. Anyway, she was still in the nursing home, and she wasn't quite all there at that time either, but I can remember being at the house, and Winona went to go get Grandma, and she pulled up with a car, and Grandpa was at the door to greet her, and she flew up the steps just to see him, and she was just, they hadn't seen each other for, I don't know, just a little while, but they probably used to be together 24/7 for a long time. And they were just hugging and kissing like teenagers, and then she sat down, and they were on the couch, and they just couldn't stop just holding each other's hand and gazing into each other's eyes, and I thought, oh, that's just so sweet. Anyway, those are a couple of my memories.
Yeah. All right. Go.
We got dead air up there.
Yeah, you need to put a picture up there.
Where'd you go?
Okay, I don't know what, I remember that Grandma was really crafty, and I really bought into that, and she taught me how to hook rugs and everything. I still have some of her hook rugs, and she told me stories about when she was a teacher and some of the things that she would do with her kids. And because of that, I did some of the same kinds of things with the kids that I taught, and it worked out really well. But I've been reading the books. There are 2 books over there that belong to Madeline. In reading those books, they have a record of all the contracts that she signed as teacher, and they had 2- and 3-month terms, and that's what they signed for as a teacher, contracted teacher. So that's why she's in there so many times, is that they really had short terms as teachers. They didn't sign for the whole year. And sometimes, since it was such an agrarian, that's a great word, culture, they didn't have very long terms because it kind of went with the farm schedules. And there's some stories in there about the teacher shows up and warms up the schoolhouse and no one shows up, and it's because the teacher should have known it was way too cold for the kids to come to school, and that kind of thing. So it was amazing to read the kinds of things that they had to put up with. There's one story that Keith sent on about Grandma's family, or was it Grandma's? I can't remember now. Coming and on the train, it was Grandma's family, I guess, and how they had to. They bought 2 sets of horses and 2 wagons, and how they had to get to the Flora area, and it took how many days it took to get there, and how they had to pull the wagons up from rolling down the hills. And when you think about it, that it's not that long ago from then to now, it's just amazing. I do remember stories that Grandpa would tell. He told that same story to me, and it was like, and it wasn't, he chased them all the way to Idaho, is what I heard.
Really?
And so it could have been that the story changed from time to time. That's the story that I remember hearing. And I always wish that our family told more stories like that, because it would have been interesting. My mom told a story about how when Grandma went back to teaching school when she was born, after she had all of 4 kids, my mother got babysat by the wife of the banker in Flora, and she loved going to the banker's house because it was a real city house, townhouse, and she loved spending time in that house. It wasn't like, it didn't have the outhouse, maybe it did, I don't know, but it was a much nicer house than their house, and that's always what she aspired to, was to have a nicer house than where she lived. And I think that kind of spoiled her attitude toward her own family's house, because she spent time at the banker's house, and that was something that she really admired and liked a lot. I don't know what else. Any other memories? I'm sure I have a lot more memories, but
Yeah, when you think our grandparents went from horse and buggy to watching the moon landing.
I always think of that, and here Grandpa, I know, he really admired Dad because he was a pilot too. He told me stories about Dad landing in a field and how that was just amazing to him that he knew so much that he could do that kind of thing. And it's kind of mind-boggling all the changes that they saw in their lives.
Okay, something that you have never seen Fred Prudence do is have a glass of wine.
That's right.
Greg did that. You know, football. I don't know what to talk about. Sometimes I think, okay, should I talk about the time that, because I was always up there at summertime for at least a couple of weeks. And so, okay, should I talk about going over to the messengers and feeding the hogs because the messengers were gone? Or the time that, Grandpa would go down and cut the heads off the chickens and I would go chasing after the chicken heads. Or the time when I actually saw Grandpa get upset at a woodpecker that was I guess, hiking up. That he was upset at a woodpecker that was pecking away at the peak of his barn, and he went out there with a 12-gauge shotgun and blew a hole in the roof of the So, Grandpa did have a temper that didn't serve him well. Or the time we were down at Winona's house and there was this kitten, and of course Winona had her cats, and this kitten had an infection. And he just, I need to do something about that infection. He pulls his pocket knife out, just pokes a hole in this cat, and this crap falls out. But that was the life that they knew, and how they lived it. And it was, but I really think the thing that impressed me the most, particularly with Fred, is he was in Dallas in 1969. And we're watching television, and the first man is walking on the moon. And we're watching this. It's live on TV. And he's going, well, I always thought men would walk on the moon. But I just don't understand how this TV thing works.
Diane? Christy's opting out. She doesn't have a voice.
Chrissy had to talk because of her voice. And I had to make notes because of my memory. Or lack thereof.
Who are you?
I have lots of stories about Grandma and Grandpa. Some really good ones. But what I really want to talk about is the present and the future of our family. So when I look at our family, when we're in this group, I look at a really inclusive family, and that we take everybody in who wants to come, have fun, enjoy some good food. And I think that Grandma and Grandpa would be so proud of that because they lived in smaller communities where everybody mattered and the whole group, got together. And so I see that happening in this family, and I want it to last. And so it's the young people here who are going to be in charge of that. Important thing is as we're all about ready to pass this on to the next generation, this keeping the family together, is that you have to really make sure that your children have as much fun as we had when we got together in our families when we were little. And so they need to cook with you, they need to play with you, they need to do all these things that we did when we were kids and that you did when you were kids. Cyrus is upstaging me.